Hello, good morning everybody. Myself Shakira madam. Today I am going to teach you lesson number 4, The Boy Who Asked for More. This lesson is for 8th standard, second language, English. Today we deal with the introduction of the writer and new words. This lesson is already explained in the online class also. So those who had missed that one, so be perfect with this lesson. The Boy Who Asked for More. This lesson is written by Charles Dickens, who was from 1812 to 1817. The greatest Victorian novelist is known for his attacks on social evils like child labor and institutional cruelty. This lesson is written by Charles Dickens, and Charles Dickens was one of the greatest Victorian novelists. Victorian was one of the period, and he was the novelist by the time, and in his novels he had described about the social evils prevailed by that time. The social evils which were common that time were child labor and institutional cruelty. His most popular works are David Copperfield, A Tale of Two Cities, and Great Expectations. So these are the famous books of Charles Dickens. This extract from Oliver Twist tells us how Oliver was forced out of the poor house. So this lesson is a small extract taken from the novel Oliver Twist. And in this novel you can see that how the Oliver he has himself put to this character, and he described that how he was forced out of the poor house. So here the poor house is one of the orphan age. The new words which are used in the lesson are hastily, which means urgently, pauper woman means poor woman, beadle means an officer, persuade means convince or believe something. Gruel, watery, liquid, food. So here these are not only the new words which are used in the lesson, many more new words are used, which while explaining the lesson I'll clarify you. Appetite means natural craving for food. Council means meeting. Poor house, a building where poor people, children are maintained at public expenses. So already as I told you that poor house, how Oliver was treated in that house means it was one of the house, and those poor children or orphan children were kept or looked after there, and the expenses were taken care by the public. Hardly known means almost not known. Excitement, feeling strongly. Horror, feeling of extreme fear. Miserable means very unhappy. Or wretched. Invented here, coined, starved. To go without food. So let us go with the introduction is over. New words are over. Now let us go with the explanation of the poem. Explanation of the lesson. So look in your textbook also, children, or look onto the screen. Oliver was born in the poor house of a little country town on a cold, black night in the winter of 1837. Here, Oliver is a name of a boy, and as they were very poor, so the boy was staying with his mother in the poor house, which is there in the little town. And when he took birth, by that time it was winter season, it was very cold, and the, it was a black night. He took birth in the year 1837. The birth was attended by a doctor who was hastily called for the purpose. So when his mother was feeling difficult to deliver the boy, by the time a doctor was called, and that doctor was very much experienced, and by an old pauper woman who was experienced in such matters. And with the doctor, another one lady was there who was very, very poor, but she had experience in that field. The paragraph second, the mother died almost as soon as the baby took his first breath. So as soon as the baby took birth, immediately the mother died. She was a young, good-looking woman who had been found lying in the street. His mother, that is the child's mother, that is Oliver's mother, she was found lying in the street. It was clear that she had walked some distance before she died. So, how she was found lying in the street? It was clear that as she might be walking and some distance she had walked, but later it was unable for her to walk, so she was lying on the on the road in the street, and there she passed away. Her shoes had been torn to pieces. So as she was very poor, and the shoes which she had worn, they were torn into pieces, means they were totally tattered. Where she had come from or where she had been going, nobody knew. Nobody was knowing much about the lady, that is, from which place she had come, where she might be going. Nobody had any, nobody was knowing anything about her. Next paragraph. The baby cried loudly. So, as soon as the child took birth, it started crying loudly. If she could have known that he was now an orphan or a poor house, it is likely that he would have cried still louder. So here the writer says that as soon as the baby took birth, the mother had passed away. Suppose the child was knowing that she is an orphan and staying in a poor house, she might have felt it still bad, and she would have cried still louder. They called him Oliver Twist, a name invented by Mr. Bumble. So, Mr. Bumble is a name of a person who was an officer of the town, and he gave the name for the child as Oliver Twist because he could not think of any other. So, why did he give the name as Oliver Twist? Because there was not any other name flashed in his mind to keep for the child. So, as he remembered the name Oliver Twist, so he gave the name for the child that. Mr. Bumble had full authority over the people of the poor house. The poor house was totally under the hands of Mr. Bumble. Mr. Bumble was the whole and soul in charge of the poor house. He thought himself a very great man indeed. So always Mr. Bumble used to think himself that he is a very great person. He starved and ill-treated the children under his care. But he was not a great person, as he never fed the poor children full, and his treatment with the children was very bad. He never took proper care to them. Oliver's ninth birthday found him a pale, thin child who had hardly known a kind word or met with a kindly look. So Oliver had spent 9 years of his life in that poor house. So when he was 9 years old, it was seen that the it was seen that Oliver had become very pale, very weak he had become very lean, and never he had heard a kind word or never he had seen any kind person. So this sentence shows that the treatment in the poor house was very bad. They never cared the children, they never loved the children, they never gave the proper food to the children. His only friends were his little companions in misery. So with him, other few children were also there, and those were the friends for Oliver Twist. But misery means difficulty. So whenever he felt himself in difficult situation, his friends were the only support to him. But in the end, they brought him trouble. But at the end of the story, when we read, we find that to whom Oliver was thinking that they are his best friends, they only put him into trouble. They persuaded him to ask for more. So, as in already in the meaning, we had read the meaning of the word persuade. Persuade means convince. All the time they used to convince Oliver to ask for more food because in that poor house they used to give it very very little food for the children. That's why those children were very pale and very thin and lean.